Southeast Texas Weekly, brought to you by the Modern Vein Surgery Institute at Privity Clinic for Surgical Care.
Hello again and welcome back to Southeast Texas Weekly, talking politics. Ion Politics here once again. I'm Kevin Steele. Thanks for being with us. Time to talk politics with Shane Howard, the Jefferson County Tax Assessor Collector. More on the Republican side. And Michael Lindsay, more on the Democratic side with Lindsay and Parsons. Great to see you, gentlemen.
Good to see you.
Appreciate you coming in. Michael Lindsay, a chief proponent of Speaker John Boehner and the Seattle Seahawks. Big fan, I understand. Wrong on both counts, right?
Richard Sherman's a man, I'll just say that.
That's it, huh? Did Governor Rick Perry really open a doorway to legalized marijuana in the state of Texas? We begin with you, Michael.
Yes and no. I mean, it's a conversation we need to have in Texas, and so many issues in the country are so polarized. You know, right to life, labor issues, unemployment benefits. Pick an issue, and everybody knows. If you answer 5 questions, we know which side you're on. But when it comes to issues of marijuana and legalization, it's not been polarized yet.
Is the state of Texas ready for it?
I think so. I mean, we're a nation, we're a nation. We're a state of, 30 million people.
Really, we're a nation.
The simple reality is this, the war on drugs has not worked. We've said this for years. Fortunately now, as Michael said, we need to have an actual conversation about the realities of it and start to look at how it affects policy. Personally, I'm in favor of decriminalization. But employers need to be able to also, have standards for themselves as well.
And so, is that essentially what the governor was talking about? More decriminalization than legalization in that common sense?
I think that's what the governor said, but what surprised me was that he didn't talk about the medical marijuana and the uses. I would think that would be safe, neutral ground for any politician to step out on.
That'd be a great start. A great start.
What about the evangelical right? Obviously, he doesn't care for purposes of being reelected, but you would wonder if he is really going to anger a part of his base in making those comments.
Well, having a conversation is never, and this is where we've got to get to in this country, and I don't care what the subject is, an actual conversation about policy and how that flows into actual law. And whether the evangelical right gets upset or not, as you well know, control freaks, regardless of whether it's for social issues or economic issues, whether they come from the left or right, government is not there to make us feel better about the various things that we want to control. It's about having a healthy conversation about what's good for society and then passing into law things that actually make sure that we embrace liberty while at the same time giving people the ability to freely associate.
Michael, do you think that really would be a good idea for the state of Texas? Decriminalize marijuana use?
I think
Washington State and Colorado have?
I think it's insane that 60 or 70% of the people in the LeBlanc and Stiles unit are incarcerated for minor criminal drug offenses. And I think Shane's right that evangelical or not, I think we need to look at it hard with separation of church and state and what is good for Texas and what's good for our people here and what makes sense for us.
Where's Greg Abbott on this question?
I have no idea. And honestly, I think you're going to get probably the most pushback primarily from some in law enforcement. I think it'll be Democrats and Republicans, and not necessarily the evangelical right. There'll be a knee-jerk reaction, I think. But there is a place for the conversation. It has to take place, and frankly, I think it would be healthy to do so. The key is not subsidizing behavior and also making sure that people have a right to freely associate. And then we can go from there.
Democratic gubernatorial hopeful Wendy Davis this week with comments that apparently resonated even with some of the national news cable networks in that she evidently misstated in some way, I'll use that term, the age at which she became a single mother. There were questions about her sincerity, about her past. Michael Lindsay, is she disqualified for office?
Well, she's not disqualified, and if you or I to make statements like that and incorrectly remember issues and events from our past, they wouldn't be judged as harshly. But in perspective, you have to say if you're going to hold the highest office in the state of Texas and be governor, you need to be somewhat accountable for what you say.
Did she misstate? Did she purposefully obfuscate? What did Wendy Davis do in saying that she was 19?
I have no idea. Frankly, I'm not she's not extremely well respected. She's not considered much of an intellectual heavyweight.
Not well respected, Michael
Well,
Lindsay?
I mean, she's well liked, but you know, the bottom line is she propelled herself to the forefront, and that's fine. That's politics. She definitely has a narrative that she's formed for herself, and so I don't hold it against her. I don't hold it up for her. This is just the normal things, and then what I'm looking for is when she starts to come out with actual policy ideas. Because for all the issues that I've worked in the Capitol and everything, none of us go to Wendy Davis's office because she doesn't really carry much weight.
This just in from Shane Howard. She has no policy ideas, Michael Lindsay. What do you
I
think of
didn't
that?
say that. We don't know what they actually
Well,
are.
I do think Shane
She's
is
got
right.
a story.
That the questions ought to revolve around policy issues and what our policy and what does she believe and what is she going to try to do. And the question shouldn't be, were you 19 or 21 when you got married? How
Right.
long did you live in a trailer? And who paid your bills when you went to Harvard?
That's right. We really don't, I mean, I could care less about that, but she seemed to have cared about it in building her story, so that's for her to figure out, and for people who support her to, you know, that went with her because of this narrative, to maybe reconsider. But for me, I could care less. I want to know about what the ideas are, and I think that
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Eventually, right?
it'll be entertaining too.
Congressional candidate Jim Engstrand joining us in just a few moments, along with two 52nd Democratic candidates, Stella Morrison, Raquel West, and Nathan Buddy Reynolds. That's coming up in just a few minutes. We'll have more of Southeast Texas Weekly when we come back.